And welcome to the One More Thing podcast. Today I'm joined by Pastor Larry.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a great kickoff to a new series, Son of Man. This is one that I know I was personally ready to hear as you were talking about it weeks before we even launched. And so I thought it was a brilliant setup and introduction and somewhat controversial in some of the things you laid out that most of us don't think about when we talk about the person of Jesus. So I want to begin by asking and put you on the hot seat, like, what's the biggest misunderstanding the church has had, in your opinion, about Jesus from then till now?
Well, and we go back in history, and I think history will tell you the different stages where things changed. And really, when Christianity became part of the government in about 300 AD or so, under Constantine, that's when everything shifted. Because before it was kind of free-flowing, people could have a lot of variety of opinions. But when you get to be part of the government, they said, no, we want one opinion, one viewpoint. We don't want it to be controversial, and any controversy we'll kill out. So the church became very much institutionalized. When Jesus came, I think he spoke against imperialism. By that, I mean he spoke against the Judaist, the Jewish system of religion, the hierarchy in the Jewish religious system, the fact that it marginalized people, it condemned people who had infirmities. They were just, it was this whole concept. And then Rome came along and killed people. And it seems like Jesus comes to say, look, I want to set you free from the bondage of this organizational structure that seems to often inflate death and minimize life. So the Son of Man series is an attempt to come in and say Jesus was also human. When the church gets so focused on Jesus being a deity, then it misses the practical application of his teaching. So if I just confess my sins before Jesus and I accept him into my life, and folks, if you're watching this, I grew up in this, and not only was indoctrinated, I taught it.
Same. Yeah.
And at some point you begin to go, this doesn't fit the paradigm of good scholarship. I remember at a PhD class, one of the last things they asked me, my committee, before they sign off and you become doctor equal to them, one of the guys looked at me and said, now, knowing all that you know, how can you be a pastor? Because pastors are not necessarily seen as scholars. They find something that has been taught to them by somebody, and they teach it. Scholarship is saying, no, we have to be objective as much as possible.
Right.
We need to look at a wide variety of views, and sometimes we need to balance those views without particularly choosing one. I think the church and the history of the church, and particularly in my upbringing, is the focus was on a transactional, which you use this term very well.
Yeah.
It's a transactional position in religion. I do this, God does that. I ask God to come in, Jesus come into my heart and forgive my sins, and God grants me eternal salvation. And my sins are forgiven, and I'm going to live with him in heaven forevermore. I think as I've grown intellectually and emotionally, and my experience is that God is with me all the time. And what I try to do today is not try to save the world, but I try to help the world know that God loves them, and the Spirit of God lives within you.
Yeah.
And you don't have to keep coming back to this whole process or this transaction or this formula, that you just need to realize God is with me, and some days I do screw up. And there's something about confession that's very good. I confess I could be a better person.
Yeah.
But in that confession, the door's open for me to become a better person. If I say, oh, Jesus Christ covers all my sins, guess what? I can live however I want.
That's right. That's right.
And it's kind of a get-out-of-jail-free card.
I can wait till my deathbed to do those things.
Yeah, well, let's wait.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's turned off a lot of people in today's society. And I think it's the appropriate thing to talk about Jesus' humanity. Because if he's a human like I am, and he had struggles like I do, which very clearly, but it's not this, he's so God that he really didn't experience this. But a story tells us that when they, he bled. When they beat him, he bled. And when they put him on the cross, he died.
Yeah.
But what can never be killed is the spirit that he embodied. And I call it the Spirit of Christ, or the Spirit of the Logos. The Spirit of God was so overwhelming on him that no matter what they do to him, you cannot bury the truth. You cannot take that spirit and put it in the ground. It will always come back with a vengeance and with power, life-changing power, to let us realize that life is more. And if that's controversial,
Yeah.
I just have to go, I know people are doing the best they can. So am I.
Yes.
I give you the benefit of the doubt. Please give me the same benefit.
That's good.
But this lifestyle is so much more liberating if you can discover it.
Absolutely.
It's better.
Yeah, I love to say it's awesome if you want to worship and love Jesus, but if you can't walk like Jesus, then you're missing half of the joy of that, And there was a thing you talked about in the sermon, and for me, you laid it out very, very articulately, and it was very meaningful. And I think there could be some sort of teaching or podcast done on it. But you made the assertion, which is true, that each of the gospel writers had an agenda
Right.
in conveying the identity of Jesus according to their particular audience. Now, what a lot of people who are listening may not know is that there were lots and lots of books and letters written about Jesus at the time of Jesus that didn't make it into what we call the canon of the New Testament, those 27 books. But yet, there was a standard that was given in Rome when Constantine called the Nicene Council to come to one conclusion on who Jesus was. But how does that affect our understanding of Jesus, knowing that Matthew had an audience that he was writing for, that Luke had an audience, that John had an audience and an agenda? How do we at Suncoast take the truth of that, but yet still focus on this idea of Jesus trying to show us this ability that we have to attain oneness with God, like this connection with God, knowing that there's different stories about him?
Yeah, I think that's gives us lots of opportunity to teach, which we do. And I love the quote I said this weekend, if you take the text out of the context, all you have left is the con.
That's right.
And when you take Matthew's verses and you commingle them with Luke and Mark and John as if they're all writing the same thing, you come up with a story that's not accurate. For example, you can go to the birth narratives. Matthew's trying to show this is the baby that was born king of the Jews. He is the Messiah. He's the son of David, Matthew's agenda. So what's he going to do? He's going to bring the wise guys from the east.
That's right.
They're going to present these gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and they're going to talk about the regal. This is what the Messiah gets, and da-da-da-da-da. And the massacre of the babies later, and Jesus goes to Egypt, because out of Egypt have I called my son. Matthew's trying to show the parallelism of Jesus with Moses.
That's right.
And there's this whole, if Jesus is being if the Torah, the Old Testament's being read in the synagogue, and they're going through the typical standard readings about Moses, there's an add-on every week, and Matthew is adding on to that.
That's right.
It should be read in the synagogue to show Jesus here's Moses' deal. He was a baby in Egypt. Pharaoh's killing all the baby boys. He survived. Here's Jesus. He's a baby in Jerusalem. He goes to Egypt, and all the baby boys are killed while he's gone. There's so many parallelisms. So you got to know the context. Yeah. But you cannot blend the story, which we do, the story at Christmas time of Matthew, the three kings, and then you take Luke, it's the shepherds. Right. Well, at my manger, you got shepherds, and you've got kings. Some scholars have said, where's the elephants? Because these guys came from the east. There should be an elephant on the scene.
That's right. That's right.
But we...
they're different stories.
They're different stories. We mix them together, and we kind of don't do honest justice to any of them. But at the end of the day, some of that stuff we just go, breathe in, breathe out, smile.
That's right.
I can't change that, but I can teach a holistic gospel message that's simply the Spirit of Christ. And I differentiate, not the Spirit of Jesus, even though it could be the same, but there's this human side, and there's this divine presence that was in Jesus. Presence, I'd say spirit.
Yeah.
But the spirit that was in creation, Jesus was one of the first guys to wake up and say, oh my, I understand who God is and what he wants, and I'm going to embrace this, and I'm not going to fight people about it, and I'm going to fight people physically. I'm going to confront Judaism and Rome to let them know that the kingdom of God is within you.
Yeah.
It's all around you. And you too, guys, will do greater things than I've done. You too can be sons of God. All this goes together to give us a healthy religious context from which we can have our lives transformed.
Yes.
God lives in me, and you got to be kidding me, because my whole life I've been inviting him in. And then somebody says, he really has been in you.
Yeah.
And I want to separate Larry from God, and I invite him to be a part of Larry. But in reality, there is no Larry without God.
Mm-hmm.
The very life that I have is because of God's infusion of his Spirit in my life. And when I get that, then I want to be a better person.
Mm-hmm.
I want to live to love greater because something's within me that's different.
That's powerful, man. That's powerful truth. Like, that's transformative truth right there. And that's what I think makes this series, like, I had to go back and listen to it again. I saw it obviously twice on Sunday, but I listened to it again last night and on the way into campus this morning, because this is something I think that's absolutely essential and important for us to, again, it's not about being right. It's about right being. And like you said, there is no Troy without God. There's no Larry without God. And in order for there to be me, he's got to be there always already. And so I appreciate this series, Dr. Baucom, and your courage to step out and say what needs to be said.
Well, my goal is reconstruction.
Yes.
Not deconstruction.
That's right.
My goal is to say there's something better for you as a foundation for you to build your faith. And as I do that, these theological bricks, I think, are faulty. They will fall away on their own without me pulling the bricks out and watching you destroyed without a foundation. Build the right foundation, something that can help people understand who Jesus was and who God was and who he is today. And I think we can, we'll have a healthier community, and I think we're on the wave of something healthier for our country and even the whole of Christianity. It's coming up in other areas.
Yeah.
We're part of it, but I'm glad to be associated with it because I think it's non-toxic, unifying, and healthy.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing your thoughts, and I'm looking forward to this Sunday again. Can't wait.
It should be fun. Thank you.
You got it.